Ludwig van Beethoven was a German pianist and one of the world's most famous composers. His compositions combine vocals and instruments. He is the crucial transitional figure connecting the classical and romantic ages of Western music. Beethoven was born on December 16, 1770 in the city of Bonn. He was the second of 7 children. However, only 2 siblings survived aside from Beethoven. Both Beethoven's father and grandfather were musicians. At the age of 5, Beethoven's father began teaching him music with an extraordinary demanding rigor, sometimes pulling him from bed in the middle of the night to practice and play the piano until he cried. He was very mean to little Ludwig, teaching him piano in the cruelest of ways. Neighbors provided accounts of the small boy crying while playing the clavier, his father hitting him for each hesitation or mistake. Why he went deaf remains unknown. One theory is that his drunken father's frequent abuse contributed to his hearing loss. Everyone knows him as the deaf composer, but total deafness didn't set in until 1815. The year he turned 26, he began suffering symptoms like buzzing, whistling, and fading in and out of his hearing. Ludwig had his first public performance at the age of 7 in 1778. However, unlike Mozart, his childhood performances did not make him a famous young pianist. In 1780, at the age of 10, Beethoven began studying piano with his most influential teacher, Christian Gottlieb Neefe. Neefe taught him the art of composition. At the age of 12, helped young Ludwig publish his first work, a set of keyboard variations. Beethoven began working as an assistant organist under the watchful eye of his instructor, at first unpaid, eventually becoming a paid employee of the court chapel. In 1787, he set off to Vienna, hoping to meet Mozart. However, that meeting never happened. Young Beethoven was called home to attend to his mother, who became ill and died shortly after his return. It was at that time that Beethoven began taking care of his 2 younger brothers. When Roman Emperor Joseph II died in 1790, 19-year-old Beethoven was commissioned to compose a musical memorial in his honor. However, Beethoven's composition was never performed, and no reason was ever given. Just over 100 years later, Johannes Brahms, who had proclaimed that Beethoven's composition was indeed a beautiful and noble piece of music, entitled Cantata on the Death of Emperor Joseph II, is now considered one of his first masterpieces. In 1792, Beethoven returned to Vienna. However, Mozart had died the year before, so poor Beethoven was never able to meet the great fabled genius Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Shortly after his arrival, he began to study with Joseph Haydn, affectionately called Papa Haydn by many people and for many reasons. The title originated from his care of his often mischievous orchestra musicians who frequently needed saving from trouble while in the court of Prince Esterhazy. Beethoven became very popular in Vienna, and many people wished to become his patron who supported and promoted his work. This helped him to compose and publish more music. In 1794, Beethoven began to sever ties with the electorate of Cologne and made his long-awaiting public debut in Vienna on March 29, 1795. Despite his extraordinary output of beautiful music, Beethoven was lonely and frequently miserable throughout his adult life. Short-tempered, absent-minded, greedy and suspicious to the point of paranoia, Beethoven feuded with his brothers, his publishers, his housekeepers, his pupils and patrons. And in one incident, Beethoven tried to break a chair over the head of Prince Lichnowsky, one of his closest friends and loyal patrons. Another time he stood in the doorway of Prince Lobkowitz's palace, shouting for all to hear, "Lobkowitz is a donkey!" From 1803 to 1812, he composed an opera, 6 symphonies, 4 solo concerti, 5 string quartets, 6 string sonatas, 7 piano sonatas, 5 sets of piano variations, 4 overtures, 4 trios, 2 sextets, and 72 songs. One of his most famous pieces is Fiordalise, dedicated to his friend, student, and fellow musician, Therese Malfatti, to whom he allegedly proposed around the time of the song's composition. However, she rejected Beethoven's proposal. One of the biggest tragedies of Beethoven started when he began to lose his hearing at the age of 26. His hearing loss became so severe that he could no longer perform or conduct. Even though he could no longer hear the world around him, they did not stop Beethoven from writing some of the best compositions and beloved melodies, such as the Ninth Symphony, by far one of the greatest pieces ever written. Even though he had just lost his hearing, he had never lost his music. In 1824, Ode to Joy, the Ninth Symphony premiered, which brought Beethoven out of retirement to conduct one last time. The regular conductor of the orchestra encouraged the orchestra to ignore his directions and just keep playing, as Beethoven could not hear the orchestra, making it impossible for the orchestra to follow him. Because of this, they finished before he did. The audience cheered and applauded when they had finished. One of the members of the orchestra approached him and turned him around so that he could see the jubilant appreciation of the audience as they cheered, waving their arms, handkerchiefs, and throwing their hats in the air so they could show Beethoven how much they loved his music. Beethoven died on March 27, 1827, at the age of 56. Beethoven never married nor had children. He was beloved by the public, and at the time of his death, over 20,000 people came to his funeral. He is still known today as one of the world's greatest composers.